Hey, Grady.
Hi.
Grady's here.
Hey.
Hey.
All right, guys. So, well, welcome to the session. I don't know, any of you has ever been to either an unconference or an ed camp before?
Yeah. No.
No, yes, some yes or no. So basically, what we try to do in sessions like this one is really to have a more of a feel of a collaborative space and less of one presenting. And so definitely this will be more of a big consultancy group and many people are sharing ideas and challenges than one person presenting about it. Another thing also in the philosophy of that is like if at any point during this session you're feeling like you're not at the right place because your time will be better used somewhere else, just vote with your feet and walk away because I won't be offended. It's really, it's not about me, it's about the space we're creating. Okay. Now to kick it off though, I did a lot of thinking about why I would be leading this, right? So my first thought was, as a Frenchman, having grown up in France, I think in general we have better work-life balance there. Okay. And when we talk about work-life balance there, it probably is more trying to figure out how to work more and live a little less than we do because we tend to do a lot of living. But definitely, that's not really the reason why I think I'm really interested in this topic. So in all seriousness, there was a life-changing event in my life in 2004. I lost my father who passed away in about a week from a heart attack. And he was 2 months away from retiring. And he had talked to me his whole life about how he was going to retire and what we were going to do once he retired. Mm-hmm. And so this has really, really affected me deeply. It has really changed the way I perceive the now, the present, and the moment, and the time we have on this planet. And then, you know, a few years later, I had my children. And so I was telling Africa this morning, I think being a good dad remains the number one priority on my list and the goal I work toward every day. And so they've also shifted a little bit my attention back to making sure my work-life balance was okay. So to me, that's kind of like why this topic is so important. As a starting point, I was thinking maybe what we could do is some share outs using the chat function of Slack to get the conversation going. And so, are you guys all not on Slack necessarily, right? Sorry. Are you all on Zoom or no? No, not only the remote people, right?
Yeah, we don't necessarily all have our computers.
Okay. So maybe we could go just like around the table and just try to think quickly in a few words. If I tell you opportunities from having a better work-life balance, what is the first thing that comes to your mind for you? What is it called to?
Sorry, what was the question? Sorry, I missed it.
So if you could have a better work-life balance,
yeah,
what is the first thing that comes to your mind that will be a positive consequence to that?
Yes, I have one question. I have one. Going to the gym every day is a positive consequence of having work-life balance.
I'm going to write that down in the chat, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say getting more sleep, like taking a nap like in the middle of the day. I tend to work late in the nights. That's usually when I'm able to focus. So when I come in during the day, sometimes I'm not at 100%. So, you know, I think just being a little more well rested in general, I would say is important.
I would say taking my weeknights back and not.
Yeah. You say getting my weeknights back?
Yeah.
How are they right now?
Well, I would feel like I never actually have had weeknights because when I was teaching, I would do work at home, and when I'm here, I do work at home. So probably just getting weeknights in general. Not back.
And see, my comment would actually be the opposite. Work-life balance for me would be like knowing that my team, not my team, like the Better Lesson team operates on like a 24-hour schedule in the sense like I could have a meeting at 8 o'clock at night if everyone was busy or wanted to like go do their own personal things in the morning, you know, like, so like a 20, that sounds horrible to say, but like a more flexible schedule in that sense.
So Elizabeth, if I understand you correctly, it's kind of like somehow for everybody that might mean the different things to be more balanced or to have a more balanced schedule. Because for you, for example, having a meeting in the evening could actually make your life easier.
Yes. Right.
Whereas for somebody else, they want to get their evening back.
Right.
Right?
They are not both possible.
Piggyback off of Maureen's and say that I would like to get my weekends back because my PhD takes a ton of time away on the weekend.
And I'll piggyback off of Jessie that I think the most basic thing is limiting screen time, because I wake up and I am on the computer, and then when I stop working around like 5, I have to do schoolwork until like 10 every night. And so I'm just literally in front of a computer for like 14 hours a day.
Yeah, that's the same with me too.
So as a process check with our conversation, what I'm putting in the chat in Zoom and what we talked about could end up being concrete outcomes out of having a better work-life balance for each of us. And it looks already like going through that. None of the outcomes seems to be the same, right, for everybody, even though some themes resonate with each other. And so I think that's one of the first realization I think we have to have is that I don't think the concept of work-life balance exists in itself, because everybody has different equilibrium and different needs. So that could be really difficult to adjust to in an organization like ours. Let's do another round before we go into consultancy. Now, if you're thinking in terms of blocks or barriers that are preventing you right now from getting to the point you want to get, what are some of the things that come to mind for you?
What do you mean getting to where we want to get?
Well, for example, Maureen said, if I had a better work-life balance, I can get my weeknights back. And I think that would be good for me.
Okay.
So there is something that is preventing her from getting the weeknights back.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what is it? Well, how would you name it? It might be hard to summarize, but what are some blocks or barriers that are preventing from getting to that point? Does that make sense, Elizabeth?
Yes.
I think I guess part of it's probably like a me thing, like feeling, in order to feel settled, I have to like have certain things wrapped up. I'm not good at leaving things like open and like hanging. That makes me like uncomfortable, but that's like a part of my personality. So I think like that probably is one barrier. And then I think probably just like context switching and losing probably productivity time in the process of doing that. And so just getting better at that throughout the day.
We're all shaking our, I think Sunny and myself are all shaking our heads along with Maureen on that.
Along the first one or the second one?
For me, it's having all the things done. I think I feel like I do a fairly good job of balancing my workload when I feel ready to do it and it's appropriate and can flex that. I feel comfortable with that. For me, it's finding a time to take for myself, because once I get home, I have to do all the things before I can relax. It's the way that my brain is wired, and so I end up cleaning up the kitchen and doing the laundry and picking up, and by the time I'm done, it's bedtime. I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted, and and so it's figuring out how to be okay with not having everything exactly the way I think it needs to be.
Can I ask a question? Or is it not consultancy time?
You can ask a question.
We should all just be,
Yeah.
Feel free to answer.
So on a few occasions, people wrote, like, I want something back. And I just wondered, like, what does that mean? And then I began to think, like, is it because you have something better to do? And then I began to think, well, if you don't have something better to do you not prioritize that time because you haven't found like that gold nugget to fill it yet? You haven't found a passion, or you haven't like rekindled an old passion. Like there's nothing to prioritize,
Right.
Which I'm not like minimizing the importance of watching Bachelor, but but like you know, I don't know. Have we gone so long with no nights and no weekends that we've lost all these other personal passions?
I think to answer your question, Elizabeth, like last night it was like 9:30 and I'd been working for like 12, like a very long time. And I was like, came in and I was like, told Ross, I was like, I just want to go have a beer. Like it's not really like anything other than that. It's just like, I just want to go in and be normal for a second. But I think like going back and like, not that I'm not, and I'm also in school, which I recognize, so this is not all Better Lessons' fault. But I think like for the hardest part for me that's kind of preventing my time is the transition to remote work and not having a physical space to go to. So it's like not a clear end to the day as it was before.
Oh, okay.
I think
So,
I feel like not necessarily an activity or a passion, more of just like a mental break. So I think that like it's that constant like working, and even if I'm like sitting in front of the TV doing work, my mind is still on like multiple things, right? It's like I'm doing stuff on the computer, I'm like listening to people, I'm like multitasking, but I think it's just like that mental downtime, because then by the time I go to bed, my mind is still like racing. Like there hasn't been any settling.
So, one thing to help a transition to like our next section and more consultancy and offering solution to people, I think it's really important before we do that though, to think back to what Elizabeth said earlier around how different we are from each other and how different our limits and boundaries are and what we need to get back or not get back, right? So in doing so, I think we have to keep that in mind. There's a session happening at the same time as ours called time management. Is time management the answer to work-life balance?
No.
Why or why not?
This is funny. Not for me, because I feel like in my day-to-day work, I set my tasks, I coordinate my schedule, I do all those things and I accomplish them. And if I don't, I give myself a little bit of slack to move it into a different, it's not necessarily that like time management or planning. It is more like Maureen says, a mental break or giving myself permission to take time for myself. And I know it, I know I give a bunch of time to work, a bunch of time to my child, a bunch of time to my life, but I don't give a bunch of time to myself. And I'm not sure how to, because I think to what you said, Elizabeth, about like finding a passion or a hobby, but then I also have to give time to that, and I feel a responsibility to it. So how do I like give myself permission to just read a book or sit down or and not have to fill it with something that I see as a higher priority.
Does it resonate with other people, like feeling this way, that it's really like more of a guilt issue, or do you also feel like time management plays a role? Different opinion?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm time management either. Like I would agree with something. I don't think that's ever like the pressing piece to it.
And I've never called it out as guilt before. When you just said it, I was like, but you're right.
I agree. I think that they're really different things. Some of the people that I know who have the worst work-life balances have the best time management, but it's because they are the people who get excited and take on more things. So like the number of people who've said something about being in school, right? Like, so at what point is the added work of being in school something that you're really choosing for yourself versus another form of work? And so I think sometimes we have to step back and say, what are the choices that we're making, the things we choose to be involved in, the things that we want, and then what value do they have, right? Because I get stressed. My kids do 4-H, and I sit on the council for some of those activities, and that's really stressful sometimes, but it also is the way that I connect with my children, and that's really important to me. And so I have to step back and name why it's stressing me out. And sometimes it's guilt, but sometimes it's that I'm passionate about something and it takes up time, and that's a precious resource,
So as we move to a space of offering ideas and reflection and supporting each other, I will kick it off and I'll start, right? So for me, there was a really kind of influential reading a few years back, and it's a book that is old, so most of you might have read it. It's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in particular, it's the cheesy video that you can find on YouTube of Stephen Covey, who wrote the book, who is showing a participant or asking a participant to fill a jar, and that she has big rocks to put in the jar and sand. Have any of you seen that video? Yeah. And I think at that moment, it really helped me realizing that there were some big rocks in my life. And in order to achieve these big rocks, I needed to be aware of them, and I needed to find a way to prioritize them. So I think that was a really important starting point for me. So this year, for example, in the work, one of my big rocks is exercising, because when you work in front of the computer all day and you do 10 coaching calls and your watch is showing 900 steps by the end of the day, this is like a death sentence. It's not just like not walking away from your screen, right? I'm 205 pounds and 5'7". I shouldn't be. So definitely needing to be active and mobile, and it's also good for my psyche, was one of the big rocks. And then the other one I mentioned earlier was being a good dad and being a good husband. So for me, in my conception of work-life balance, I need by 6 o'clock to disconnect and have no work interaction until the next day, 7 a.m. And I decided to have these 2 goals and to make everything else in my schedule flow with that. It's been an experience, it's been a challenge, but 6 months in, it's working pretty well. I've had only one participant that I schedule at 9 o'clock at night out of the 70 that I coach. That's the only one. And I've, in general, been able to get off by 6. It hasn't been easy, though. One of the things, though, as I did this, is I started capturing when my guilt was showing. So, for example, for me, it's like if somebody sends a message on Slack or an email after 6:30, and I really, really think I should be responding, and trying to think at that moment, why do I think I should be responding right now? So that was kind of my initial contribution. Anybody has some thoughts or ideas around ways to work on that, or just around that first share out?
Well, one thing that I noticed is it's like a household thing too. So like for me, it's also with my husband, and he works from home, and he works for our company in New York. So he's a remote employee, and he's part of the leadership team. So he has a lot of things to answer in the evening. And so we're both like standing at the kitchen, like Jeremy like goes to bed, right? Which is an ordeal in and of itself. And we're sitting there at the counter with our computers, and then Jeremy's crying, and someone's running upstairs and filling a bottle. And like, so we're just sitting there on our computer for like 3 hours at the kitchen counter at night. And it's like, if one of us, I think, were to like make a step in a different direction, it might encourage the other, and vice versa. So I think it's something that we could like forge ahead together, because we're at this like very new stage of life together. So it sounds like with the context that you gave us, you might have tried these changes for yourself, Roman, but maybe this is something that I could be more successful at if I did it together with my husband.
Yeah.
Very true. Tori has a very, very demanding job, and she doesn't have to work 24/7, but she's on call 24/7 and manages like hundreds of people. And when the network goes down, it's her responsibility to make sure that it comes back up. And I feel like her phone is glued to her hand. And so when she's on her phone working, then I'm like, oh, I guess I'll work too, or whatever. And so that really resonated with me, Elizabeth. Like, maybe it's time to have a household conversation and try together to move forward. And I know that it's not always going to be perfect, because networks will not. But and then also to give myself, like, so if she has to work, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
I wonder in that situation, Sunny, because you have like Tori has something in her hand, and you're like, well, I'm gonna put something in my hand. It's on a phone, like maybe you learn how to knit or something, so you're still like doing something with your hand while she's doing something. So it's like a tactile thing. While she's doing something with her hand, maybe I will too, but it doesn't have to work.
It would be so cool at the end of a month if you're like, in all the time you were fixing a network, I'm making 4 sweaters.
Then for me, it's like a tactile thing, like just, you know, just like always having something in front of me or doing something like sitting instead of being on my phone, putting something else in my hands.
Yeah.
Could help that. That's good.
I think the theme that I've heard in the last conversation is around that. I mean, what I call an accountability partner. And so often when you try to improve in areas like that, it's really helpful to have one. And it's really helpful to norm right away from the beginning what you want your accountability partner to do if you fail to achieve the goal that you set for yourself. And first of all, you have to kind of like talk about the goals and agree on them. But then it's really helpful to have that type of conversation. So my accountability partners at home for me are Noah, my son, my 7-year-old. Noah told us 1.5 years ago that he really didn't like how much we were on our devices. And so he made a box for our phones. And we have to put them in the box after a certain time. And once in a while, we'll take them out and we'll do things. But one of the things I told him is, no, if I am on my phone and it is past the hours we set, you are free to tell me to put it in the box. And he's been doing it pretty well for the past year or so. When it comes to exercise, which is one of the things we've been trying to do, this is my little whiteboard. Liz and I have set some goals for exercising this month. And actually, we want to go beyond this month. And so we both write it on the board together. And then we have set some goals of the number of workouts a month and the number of days we do calorie count. And one thing we did to make it more fun, we determined at the beginning what would be a reward that we would like to get ourselves if we reach our goals. And then the other one had to be super supportive of it. So it's usually something you would be guilty to ask to do. But then it's like, treat yourself. You can do it. So that I wanted to share these ideas because for us, they've been working, but I don't guarantee that it'll work all the time.
I think something I need to learn how to do, and if I think about my personal life, I do the exact same thing, and it's all my mom's fault, is I never say no. Like, if someone asks me to do something, go somewhere, help them, I don't say no, nor does she. And so what that does is it creates, like, a full plate, like, well, work-wise or social-wise, or, like, just even doing things for people, like, do you mind getting me a coffee? Sure. Like, I'm not good at that. So I think I need to, like, set a goal of like saying no like 3 times a week to somebody or something. Even though and like that's hard, but I think that's like something I need to practice doing.
I also, and I wish I had it right now, I'll find it and send it afterwards. I read a really good article a few weeks back, I think it was in the Harvard Business Review, about counterintuitive ideas we have about what other people read as being professional and effective. And among them is how quickly you respond to emails and how you always say yes to things. But the article is really challenging because he showed actually that one could almost have the opposite approach. That if you respond right away to an email, it doesn't necessarily going to make the other person feel like you're on top of things. It might make the other person feel like, well, does he ever dive into anything that he can respond to me at any time? And then when I read this, for me, that was a revelation because now when I get an email, and I'm tempted to respond right away, and it's after work hours, I think about it as like, are you trying to respond because this person is in an emergency? Or are you trying to respond because you want to send the image that you're on top of things? Because if that's the case, that is not a good reason for me. So I'll try to find this reading. Any other suggestions or ideas you guys want to share with the group that could be helpful in working with around this idea of having a better balance?
I set alarms on my phones for almost everything. Like, go to bed, work out. Like, I have different alarms on my phone and they're titled whatever I want to remind myself of. Those are 2 examples. I definitely have a 9 o'clock, like, you should like try to start to go to bed and like shower and like get ready to start your night. So not kind of conflict. Well, wait a second, what just happened to the rest of my night? So I set alarms for everything. Because a lot of front of your head. Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
I was going to say I read an article recently. It kind of goes off of the alarm thing. It's like the 20-20 ratio. I mean, you can make it any ratio. You can make it 40-40, but you spend 40 minutes doing something that you need to do, and then you put that away and you spend 40 minutes doing something that you want to do. And then as soon as that timer goes off, then you switch back and you do something that you had to do. And then when that timer goes off, then you do something that you want to do. And that's, it's a time management piece. And I know that we kind of surfaced that it might not be time management for everyone, but like that might be a strategy that people would find interesting to utilize.
I think time management plays a role once you have identified your big rocks and your guilt things, because then you want to put them in the schedule and make them happen. So I think it plays a role still. I'll share one too that to me works really well, but you have to know yourself really well. I feel like if I'm enrolled in a social activity, I'm more likely not to go. So like I signed up for a tennis class this year, and now I signed up to a tennis team. And because I'm with a group of people, then I usually don't skip my workouts or my commitments with them, and that's been really helpful.
I have a question around kind of going back to what I was talking about, maybe household, more of this. How do any of you find the balance between what you think should be happening and maybe the person who you live with thinks should be happening? Like I have to do all the things before I can relax. Tori has to relax before she can do all the things. So how do you find that balance? Or I think the start would be like to have a conversation together about it, but does anybody else experience that or
Or even like on a team, it's
right.
just like, not that we like relax here, but like before you do one thing over the other.
Right.
Let's relax.
Yeah, right.
Relax before KPIs.
Is there like maybe like a place that is always tidy, or like a place that doesn't have a lot of things that need to be done, that you could have a chair or something, like, oh, this place is clean, I'm gonna go there and like try to so it's not in front, so it's not in front of you, or
Oh,
just like, I don't know.
I think your point is really interesting.
That's a really, actually,
You don't
in
get
our
distracted.
house, there's not. There, like Tori uses the office, the extra room is an exercise room, Anya has a playroom. So I don't have a designated space. That might,
Like, do you have
Yeah.
a designated space that is
Yeah.
your space, that is always the way you want it, and
Yeah.
if you go there, maybe you won't think about the other things in other places?
yeah,
And it's still a mental thing, but like if you're physically there and you're just, the things around you see are the way you want them, then you don't have to, then you can set a timer for 40 minutes or something and then say, oh, now I can leave and then see all the things that I have to do.
that's a super cool idea. It's my office right now. Like when you know what I mean? Like right now, that's the space where I have, that's mine set up and I can get work done, but I don't at home. Right. That's awesome.
Victoria out.
Right? We got 2 bedrooms in this house.
Sonny, I think the other thing is to really have open conversations about that difference in philosophy and to name it, right? And to say, like, I really need this and you seem to really need this, and where's the compromise? And I think both people have to give, right? Like both people have to be willing to say, this is where I can meet you in the middle and be on the same page, and if both people aren't ready to do that, then I think that's another discussion. But I think that whenever that's worked for me in life, it's always been where two people are both willing to say, I can recognize that I'm getting hung up at this spot, right? That I feel like things need to be under control before I can relax. Can we talk about that?
I think that's a really good point, Chris. And I want to ask you a question, guys. Do you think these conversations also should happen in the workplace? Should we be norming as a group, like limitations around like when we want to meet, when we want to be connected, or do you feel like this is something that's really up to everybody's style?
Well, Ramon, I think that like when you name and you say, I'm not going to answer a Slack message after this time, and that if everybody can respect and honor that, but then if you can in return respect and honor that for some people, their best productivity is to deal with Slack messages after their coaching day has ended, right? And so as long as both things can be acceptable and everybody can just understand, I think that, yeah, you should have those norms, that does make everybody's work life better, to be able to say, I've given my norm and everybody knows this and that's okay.
I think as a manager, that's something that I could do with my team. I know we kind of talk about it and there's a general understanding, but I don't know if we've ever talked about like actual setting expectations or, you know, and I think would be a beneficial thing to do in my team so that even if I'm sending an email at 8 o'clock at night, they know that I'm not actually expecting them to respond. But I have never said that.
Right. And I know, like, when I first came back, I asked a few people that I would meet with, like Jeff or whatever. I was like, yeah, so Jeff, would you ever, like, have, because our past meeting time didn't work out, like, would you ever meet with me at 8 o'clock at night? And he's like, well, some days. Whereas other people were like, no, I would never Zoom with you at 8 o'clock at night. So I don't think it has to be like a company norm. I just think you need to navigate it on your own. Advocate for what you need and respect what someone else does.
I think like because we're a mission-driven company, I do think that like it's just in people's natural tendency to work the way that they feel the mission of the company. And so I think people across the board at Better Lesson work very hard in all of their jobs and all their positions, and oftentimes like beyond that work hour because, you know, they're very motivated and passionate about what they're doing. And so I think norming is hard because everyone has a different norm, but I think the conversation is good because I do think even if people aren't here at this session, I think everyone has a tendency just to kind of work past like, you know, a certain point just because it's the way that we all are. And it's a small company, so what other people do affects other people. And so I think that that's just something different about our work life versus like other places.
So that's interesting. You just said what some people do affects other people. To build on your example of if I send an email, I need them to know that they don't have to respond to it. And this is like a challenge for at like a manager level. Yeah. What if we challenge ourselves not to send that email, right? Or just to hit like whatever the thing is, like send it at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? Like, does that make a difference, or is it really just in saying don't respond to it? Like, yeah, you know, Roman, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there some law in France where you can't send an email like after 6 o'clock at night or something?
It just got passed. It just got passed about a month ago. Yes.
Yes. And so
Because in France there has been in the past year and a half a lot of suicides in the workplace from related to workplace stress. So the government decided that we need to put some kind of boundaries around emails going from managers or bosses toward employees.
Puts it back on me. I put it on them, but that puts it back on me. I don't expect them to answer. Do I need to send it right at that point? That's a great
I think the challenge with that is time zones.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning and my inbox is just packed. And so like I wake up just trying to wade through email, and then I end up sending a ton of emails for 3 hours after people have left the office.
And I agree with you, Rochelle. And I think I like the idea of like having honest conversation about it as opposed to like what the French government is trying to do and say, okay, it's forbidden, right? But one thing though that I think is really important, so I need to go back to what you said with the manager. I know for me what was instrumental is the role Jana, my manager, has played in this, because from the beginning, she has made it clear to me that she wanted me to be productive and happy, and the balance of both of these things were important to her. And that has really helped me with the guilt factor, because sometimes the feedback she gives me is I am productive, but not necessarily happy. And that's the first time in my life that a manager works with me around that. And it really helps me feel more comfortable, like going to you today. Like even as I'm talking to you today, I'll be honest with you, I'm feeling guilty because I'm thinking, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but you're describing passionate people as people who work after work hours. And I just described to you that I stopped working by 6. I'm super passionate about that work. I just stopped working by 6, right? So there's a lot of like things that we need to norm so that we don't at times feel like I have to work because otherwise they're not going to think I believe in this as much as they do.
I hate to end this conversation because
Ramon, just to clarify, I said passionate about many things, not just work.
No, I agree.
And so like we might be passionate about other things too. So you might be very passionate about things after 6.
I'm very passionate about things after 6. And that includes tennis and a lot of things. No, but I think that it's definitely. I think one of the things that I walk away with that we talked a lot about today is guilt, and how to try to think about that and talk about that and see if it has a positive impact on our balance. Thank you guys. I hope that was helpful.
Very much.
See you.
Here, bye guys.
All right.